Hey everyone, welcome to my channel or welcome back. So I'm going to be doing a very exciting second last update for my Pan Those Eyeshadows. I think this might be my most exciting update ever because I've never been able to roll out more than 3 shadows at a time, and I've been sort of doing 1 or 2 for the last quite a few months, but I'm actually going to be rolling out 4 this update, so it gives me a little bit more to play around with. So I'm pretty much getting a complete reset right before I wind down this project, but that's okay. I will definitely be starting it up next year with a fresh quintet? Yeah, that's the word that I'm looking for. Before I get into it, I am getting over a cold, so my voice sounds a little weird. I physically am fine. It's just that I'm still sounding a little bit nasally. I was disappointed because I got like so close to making it to reading week without getting sick, and then I did like 2 days before. I'm fine, although realistically, I don't think I did myself any favors with like boosting my immune system because I spent 2 days in and out of a cold room existing on Red Bull and Cliff Bars when I did my field work and the experiment afterwards, so I think I was kind of asking for it a little bit. I was kind of hoping that I wouldn't, but here we are. Anyways, I'm fine. Sound a little weird. I hope it's not too annoying, but anyways, let's get into it. So I'm going to start off with the only shade that is staying in this project for this round, and that is the shade Leo from my Melt Gemini palette. And Leo is a really gorgeous deep green, and I have only reached for this twice since the last update, and I have used it 15 times total since rolling it in. This is just going to stay until the end of the project, but I am looking forward to reach for it a little bit more over the next month, especially I think around the holiday seasons. It'll be perfect, so I'm glad to still have it in, even if it was kind of a little bit of an outlier in the color story from last month. So next up, I'm going to move on to my next shade, which is the shade Dazzling from my ABH and Ravina palette. I rolled this in last month, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to hit pan on it, but I actually did. I used this 7 times, and I did hit pan. And I also feel like I got a little bit of a new appreciation for this shade. It is such a gorgeous, like pinky, purpley bronze. I really love the shimmers in this palette. They are stunning, but I just found that I was more likely to reach for either summer or rose gold over this one, but I feel like having it in this project, I just sort of gained a better appreciation for it, and I will definitely be reaching for it more often. So I'm wearing it today. I've been wearing it quite a lot over the last few days because I knew I was close to pan, but I wasn't sure if I was going to get there. Even if I hadn't, I was considering rolling this one out just because it's very similar to the shade Sextrovert. God, I hate Pat McGrath names so much, but it's very close to the shade Sextrovert in my Pat McGrath Mini Sublime, which is in my new roundup of Pan Those palettes for this year / next year, so I probably would have ended up rolling it out anyways, but I'm really glad that I did hit pan on it. It's been a joy to use, and I will definitely continue to reach for it. So next up, I have the shade Chai from my ABH Carly Bible palette. I've used this 14 times since the last update for 23 uses total, and I do have a very tiny little pan on it. I hit pan after 13 uses and used it an additional time, and it is still a very tiny speck of pan, but it is there. This was also cutting it pretty close. I think I hit pan on this like 2 days ago and used it 1 additional time yesterday, and then was like, okay, the pan is there, it's visible, we are rolling it out. So this is Chai right here, and it's kind of like an mid-tone orangey brown, very warm, very easy to incorporate, very flattering, and I've enjoyed having it in. I really enjoy reaching for this palette. So the next shade that I'm going to be rolling out is going to be the shade She's in Parties from my Melt She's in Parties palette, and this is also a very stunning burgundy, but this has been in for quite some time. As you can see, very pretty, very deep. That's kind of a light swatch, but it can be built up to be pretty deep. This has been in for months. I can't even remember when I rolled it in. It's been that long. But as of the last update, I can't remember if I actually verbalized this, but I really wanted to focus on it and see if I could get it rolled out just because it had been in for so long. And so I've used it 14 times since the last update, and I have hit my usage goal on this and exceeded it. I've used it 31 times, and so I have hit my usage goal of 30, and I'm going to be rolling this one out. So I'm definitely seeing some changes in this one. I have used it 14 times since the last update, and a lot of those have been in with a precision brush, so I feel like I'm getting fairly close to hitting pan on this one. I was not going to leave it in and sort of try to push through. I'm kind of ready to give it a break, especially because I've been wearing a lot of like warm burgundy looks this month in an attempt to use this one and just roll it out of this project, but I definitely feel like I'm getting fairly close. If I compare this to the shade Total Immortal, which I have had in this project previously and did hit pan, I feel like I'm getting close, so I feel like maybe sometime over the next few months I might actually hit pan on this one, but I have really enjoyed having this one in. It's just that I get bored easily, so I think having hit my usage goal, I am more than happy to put it away for a little while. So I want to note that this is also very similar to the shade Corruption in my Pat McGrath Mini Sublime, so even if I hadn't hit my usage goal, I probably would have ended up rolling it out anyways, but I did hit my usage goal, so we are saying goodbye for the time being. So, and last but not least, I have the shade Stranger from my Stone Cold Fox palette. I rolled this in last month, and it's just sort of like a soft, cool-toned transition shade, cool-toned mauvey taupe transition shade. It's this top one right here. You can probably barely see it on my skin tone. And so I have used this 16 times total since rolling it in, and honestly I don't really think you can tell. There's maybe a very slight disruption in the pan, but this is not as powdery as some of the other ones in this row are, so if I want to hit pan, it would be taking me quite a while. But having said that, I am going to roll this one out, simply because it's similar enough to one of the shades from, again, my Pan That palette reboot. This is similar enough in practice to the shade Vintage Taupe from my Natasha Denona Mini Retro that I am going to be rolling this one out. Vintage Taupe is a little bit darker and a little bit warmer, but they look quite similar in the eye and I would use them for the same thing. So I'm going to be rolling this one out and reaching for Vintage Taupe whenever I need something similar. So these are all the shadows that are going to be rolling out, and as you can see, they made a pretty cohesive quintet. I've been wearing a lot of these together over the last month or so, and it was interesting because I didn't think that chai was going to work as well because it definitely has a much more obvious orange undertone, but if you layer it over Stranger, it actually cools it down quite a bit and it sort of makes it take on more of a pink appearance. So they've actually all worked very well together, but I am ready to like put down the warm pinky bronze burgundy looks for a little while. So having said that, I'm going to get into my pan percentage before I roll for my new shadows because that has changed pretty significantly. So I have decided to pull 2 palettes out of my collection, and those had a lot of pans on them. I have decided that it's probably time to say goodbye to my Emerald Obsessions palette, which was my previous Pan That palette for this year, and so that had 8 pans in it. And then I also decided to say goodbye to my Elf Earth and Ocean palette because that is just not, I haven't been reaching for it for a while, and the formula's definitely changed, and not in a good way on that one, and that had like 6 or 7 pans. So I have definitely, even though my total number of total pans of eyeshadow has gone down, so have my number of pans. So there has been a pretty significant change. So I was at 17.7% as of the last update, and then so now I am at 12%, 12.1% if we're rounding up a little bit. So I am now at 15 pans out of 124 pans. I am not mad about this. I've been sort of tracking things as they go, and I'm sure that this will sort of rebound over the next couple of months. And like I said, I've never really stressed too much about pan percentage. It's just sort of something that I like keeping track of because I like numbers. So I think we're all here for me rolling in the new shades. So I just did that off camera before I sat down to film, and I have an interesting color story. So the first thing that I rolled in is the shade Aura from the ABH Curly Bible palette, and this is sort of another, like, I think they described it as like a coppery rose gold. It's very, very pretty, and I've been wanting to reach for it more, so I'm glad to have it in, and I think it'll be fun to play around with. I probably won't use this more than a handful of times, but I'm definitely glad to have it in because every time I reach for this palette, I think I should reach for this more, but I sort of went for Dazzling instead this month, so I'm glad that this palette gets to stay in. It's been getting a lot of use, but I am not upset about that in any way, shape, or form. The next shade that I rolled in is the shade Bamba from my Belle Mary Jane palette, which I've had for quite some time, and it hasn't made its way into this project yet, so I figured it was only a matter of time. And I actually think Bamba is going to work pretty well with the shade Leo from my Melt Gemini palette because it's kind of like a deep green toned gunmetal shade. I love shades like this. I am a big fan of a good gunmetal shade, as evidenced by I think the eyeshadow that I was wearing in my last update. Not Bamba, the other one, Santa Maria, in this palette, but I think this will work. I think these two will work really well together, so I'm excited for that. Then the Gemini is also staying in, and we are getting the shade Cupcake, which is just kind of like a deep warm brown. I don't reach for these shades a ton, so I think I'll have some fun using this, and I think it'll be good for like along the lower lash line and just like adding some depth in the outer corners. So again, a little bit darker than I would normally like to work on, but I have like 1 month left, so I was like, what the heck, we'll just leave it in. And last but not least, I have another lighter shade, which I'm actually pretty happy to see, like looking at this. So I have also gotten the shade Laurel from my Natasha Denona Sunrise, which was in this project a lot at the beginning of the year and has taken a little bit of a break, but she's back, and this is kind of like a warm, like gold peachy sort of champagne color. Very pretty, very easy to use, makes a really good inner corner highlight on me, but I also have just been meaning to reach for some of these, for some of the lighter shades in the Sunrise palette recently because I kind of haven't as much over the last few months, so I'm glad to have this one in. So this is what my color story is looking like for the next month. I feel like I could have swatched it out so it made a little bit more sense, but this is what we were working on. I'm not really going to be focused too hard on hitting pan on anything. I feel like maybe I could hit pan on Aura because there is a decent dip on it already. Well, not a decent dip, but there definitely is some movement on it, and it's one of those like flakier, loosely pressed shades similar to Dazzling, so I think there's a pretty good chance that if I use this a couple of times, I probably would hit pan on it. And then the rest of them, I don't think there's any chance, but I would like definitely like to see a little bit more of a dip on Laurel, and then the rest of them we'll just sort of play around with them and see how they go. So this is what I'm working with for the next month, And I don't really have anything, I think, in the way of looks to share with you guys because I've pretty much been wearing some take on the look that I'm wearing today for most of the entire month. Like that has been sort of one of my go-tos in various ways. So I'm just wearing Dazzling all over the lid. I have Stranger and Chai in the crease, and then I have She's in Parties as the lower lash line and just like on the outer third of the eyelid. And then I have a little bit of Passion from the Norvina palette, which is sort of like a deep sort of burgundy color on the outer third just to add a little bit more depth in the crease. And that is sort of my eye look for today. I've been wearing some variation on this quite often, so I don't really have anything super exciting. There's been a lot going on this month. I did my honors research, and so I just like wasn't wearing makeup for like 4 or 5 days. We were sort of doing that, and then I got sick, so I've probably missed about a week that I probably normally would have worn makeup for, so there hasn't been as much creativity because a lot of that bled into the weekends, which is normally like my makeup playtime, and I keep it a little bit more normal for the school week. So anyways, that I think is pretty much everything I have. I've gone over new shades, updates, pan percentage, and very minimal in the way of eye looks. So I think that is pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching if you're still here. If you haven't subscribed to my channel and you want to see more project panning content, beauty content roughly once a week for now, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Feel free to give it a like if you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will catch you in the next one. Bye!